She left her husband for a pastor, dreaming of a future with him, only to find out he married someone else instead. Can you imagine that? The heartbreak, the betrayal. It's like something straight out of a movie, right? Roots in Onitsha. Ifeoma Nwosu was born in 1994 in the lively city of Onitsha, Anambra State, where the Niger River flowed wide and brown just beyond the city limits, carrying all sorts of goods from the north. Her childhood home was snugly tucked behind her dad's fabric shop in the bustling main market, one of the largest open-air markets in West Africa. From dawn to dusk, the air buzzed with traders shouting prices, the rustle of ankara and lace being unfolded for eager customers, and the sharp scent of freshly dyed cloth mingling with diesel fumes from passing trucks. It was a sensory overload, but in the best way possible. Her dad, Papa Emmanuel, was this tall, quiet guy with a neat mustache and a solid reputation for fairness. He imported bales of textiles from China and Dubai, stacking them high in his shop like colorful walls of possibility. People came from as far as Enugu, Awka, and even Abuja because he never cheated on measurements. Integrity is the only capital that never runs out, he'd say whenever Ifeoma asked why he didn't inflate prices like some of the other shop owners. It was like a mantra for him, and you could feel the pride in his voice. Then there was Mama Ngozi, her mom, who ran a provision store right at the front of their house. This place sold everything from Milo and peak milk to detergents, biscuits, and even recharge cards. Mama was the loud one, sharp-tongued, quick to laugh, and even quicker to scold. She woke Ifeoma and her two younger brothers before the first cockcrow to help sweep the shop, arrange goods, and serve early customers. Idle hands invite poverty, Mama would chant, handing Ifeoma a broom as if it were a magic wand that could keep poverty at bay. Life wasn't lavish, but it was comfortable. There was always food on the table, pounded yam with bitter leaf soup on Sundays, jollof rice during festivals, and akpa for breakfast on school days. Ifeoma attended a private secondary school, sporting a crisp white and green uniform, dreaming of becoming a big woman in Lagos. She devoured Nollywood magazines hidden under her mattress, staring at pictures of Genevieve Naji stepping out of private jets, Omotola Jalad in designer gowns at movie premieres, and Rita Dominic attending events in London. One day, Ifeoma whispered to herself, "That will be me." Every evening, after closing the shop, the family would gather in the living room to watch African Magic on their small generator-powered TV. Mama would sigh dramatically at the rich husbands on screen and turn to Ifeoma. "See how they're enjoying. My daughter, you will marry a man who has money, oh. Not these small boys that will make you suffer like me." Papa would grunt in disagreement, but say nothing. He believed in hard work, not handouts, and that was a lesson Ifeoma took to heart. Church was a must. Sundays meant starched lace blouses and wrappers, marching to St. Michael's Catholic Church from Massachusetts. But when Ifeoma turned 15, her parents switched to a new Pentecostal fellowship called Mountain of Fire and Miracles. The drumming was louder, the prayers more intense, and the testimonies of sudden wealth thrilled her young heart. Women stood up to shout, "I was selling pure water, but after sowing a seed of 50,000 naira, God gave me a shop in a Kanja market." Ifeoma's eyes widened. Money could come fast if you believed enough. It was like a light bulb went off in her head. This was the kind of life she wanted. By the time she got into Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Awka to study business administration, Ifeoma had already made up her mind. She wouldn't return to Onitsha to sell fabrics or marry a trader. Lagos was calling, the city of opportunities, where young women became influencers, bankers, and CEOs. She spent her holidays visiting her aunt in Festac, riding Okada through the chaotic streets, staring at the skyscrapers on Victoria Island, and promising herself she would one day live in one of those estates with high gates and security men. The energy of Lagos was intoxicating, and she could feel it in her bones. In her final year, she began dressing differently, wearing fitted skirts, weaving long Brazilian hair, and practicing the Lagos accent she picked up on Instagram. Friends teased her, "Ife baby, you want to go and catch big fish in Lagos ABI?" She'd laugh and reply, "Not just big fish, shark." Deep down, she believed it. She believed that beauty, brains, and a little faith could lift her far above the dusty market streets of Onitsha. When graduation came in 2016, Papa sold part of his stock to fund her move. He handed her an envelope with 200,000 naira and a serious warning. Work hard, my daughter. But remember, no matter how far you go, Onitsha is your route. Mama added tearfully. And don't forget to marry on time, oh. All these Lagos girls waiting too long end up alone. Those words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. With one suitcase, a handbag full of dreams, and a heart bursting with ambition, Ifeoma boarded a night bus to Lagos. As the vehicle pulled away from the motor park, she watched the lights of Onitsha fade in the distance. Little did she know, the seeds of discontent, planted during those childhood hours spent staring at glossy magazines and listening to tales of overnight wealth, would one day grow into a tree that cast a long, dark shadow over her life. Moving to Lagos. The night bus from Onitsha to Lagos rattled along the bumpy expressway, its engine groaning like an overworked Danfo. Ifeoma sat by the window, her head pressed against the cool glass, watching the darkness swallow villages and roadside shrines. The air inside was thick with the smell of fried akara from passengers' snacks, mixed with the faint body odor of too many people crammed together. She clutched her handbag tightly on her lap, the one holding her degree certificate, the 200,000 naira her father had given her, and a small nylon bag of gari and groundnuts her mother packed in case hunger catches you before salary. As the bus lurched forward, Ifeoma felt a mix of excitement and anxiety bubbling inside her. This was it. The big city awaited her, full of dreams and opportunities. But then, a thought crossed her mind. What if it was all too much? What if Lagos wasn't what she imagined? The stories of struggle, the hustle, the competition, it was overwhelming. But she shook her head, pushing those doubts away. She had come too far to turn back now. The bus finally pulled into the chaotic bus terminal in Lagos, and Ifeoma stepped out into the bustling crowd. The noise was deafening, vendors shouting, people jostling for space, and the smell of street food wafting through the air. It was a sensory overload, but it felt like home. She took a deep breath, inhaling the vibrant energy around her. This was where she was meant to be. With her suitcase in tow, Ifeoma navigated through the throngs of people, her heart racing with anticipation. She was determined to make a name for herself in this city, to carve out her own path and not just be another face in the crowd. The streets of Lagos were calling her name, and she was ready to answer. By the time the bus rolled into Ojota Motor Park at dawn in 2016, Ifeoma's legs felt stiff, and her wrapper was all rumpled, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. You know that feeling when you're about to step into something big? That was her. Lagos hit her like a wave. Hawkers pushing pure water, gala, and plantain chips through the windows, the honking horns of yellow buses, the thick, humid air filled with exhaust fumes, and the distant scent of the Atlantic. It was overwhelming, but in the best way possible. "Welcome to Lasgidi," the driver shouted as passengers spilled out. Ifeoma dragged her suitcase through the crowd, dodging Okada riders zooming past way too close for comfort. Seriously, how do they manage to weave through all that chaos? Her aunt, Annie Chioma, Papa's younger sister, lived in a face-me-I-face-you compound in Festac during those early holidays, but now she offered Ifeoma a temporary room in her two-bedroom flat in Amuwo Odafin. Talk about an upgrade. Annie Chioma had been in Lagos for 15 years and worked as a nurse at a private hospital in Surulere. She knew the city like the back of her hand. This city no day sleep, she warned Ifeoma on the first night, as generators roared outside and music thumped from a nearby bar. If you know hustle, Lagos go hustle you comet. That was a wake-up call Ifeoma needed. The job hunt kicked off right away. Ifeoma printed 20 copies of her CV at a business center in Festac, dressed in her best skirt suit, which she scored secondhand from Onitsha main market, and hit the streets. She was ready to take on the world. She submitted applications at banks in Marina, insurance companies in Victoria Island, and telecom offices in Ikeja. Each submission felt like a step closer to her dreams. Days turned into weeks, though, and the hustle was real. She learned to navigate the tricky BRT lanes, squeeze into overcrowded Danfos, and bargain with Okada riders who tried to overcharge JJC, Johnny Just Come, like her. Rejection came in many forms. "We will call you." "Position has been filled," or the dreaded silence of no callback at all. Ouch! It stung every time. Money dwindled quickly, transport fare, printing more CVs, airtime to follow up. Some nights, She lay on the thin mattress in Auntie Chioma's parlor, listening to the ceiling fan creak, wondering if she had made a mistake leaving the familiarity of Onitsha. But then she'd remind herself of the dream she was chasing. Then, in the third month, a miracle happened. During a walk-in interview at a mid-sized commercial bank in Acadia, the HR manager, a stern woman in a power suit, looked over Ifeoma's CV and asked, "You studied business admin at Unizik? And you have basic computer skills?" Ifeoma nodded vigorously, her heart racing. 2 weeks later, she got the call for training. Starting salary, 95,000 naira monthly. It wasn't much by Lagos standards, but to Ifeoma, it felt like hitting the jackpot. She moved out of Annie Chioma's place into a shared room in a boys' quarters in Maryland with 3 other young women, 2 nurses, and a teacher. The room was cramped, with bunk beds and clotheslines strung across like spiderwebs, but it was hers. She bought her first smartphone on credit, a Technocommon, and immediately downloaded Instagram and WhatsApp. Lagos began to open up. She was finally in the game. Work at the bank was demanding. As a customer service representative, Ifeoma faced long queues of impatient customers complaining about ATM failures, fraudulent transactions, or delayed alerts. "Madam, calm down," she learned to say with a practiced smile, even when the customer was shouting. It was tough, but she was learning the ropes. But she also picked up on the rhythms of city life. Friday evenings at Quilox or Spice Route with colleagues who had connect, traffic jams on 3rd Mainland Bridge that turned 1-hour journeys into 3, and the thrill of salary alerts dropping at month end. You know that rush when your phone buzzes with a credit alert? Pure joy. Weekends were for exploration. She attended weddings in grand event centers where brides arrived in limousines, and Aso-Abi cost more than her monthly salary. The glitz and glam were intoxicating. She window shopped at Acadia City Mall, soaking in the cool AC and dreaming of the day she could actually buy those Brazilian weaves in the salons. Church became her social lifeline. She joined a young adults fellowship at a popular Pentecostal church in Anthony Village, where the worship was vibrant and the crowd stylish. It felt good to connect with others who shared her faith and dreams. Slowly, Ifeoma transformed. The village accent softened into a smoother Lagos cadence. Her wardrobe grew: pencil skirts, peplum tops, block heels that clicked confidently on marble bank floors. She learned to contour her face from YouTube tutorials and saved up for her first human hair wig. Friends back in Onitsha barely recognized her in the photos she posted online, posing in front of the bank's glass building or at rooftop lounges with cocktails in hand. She was living the Lagos life. But beneath the excitement, a quiet hunger grew. Every day, she saw the sharp divide. Bankers on the executive floors driving Range Rovers, customers withdrawing millions without batting an eye, influencers on her timeline flaunting trips to Dubai and Maldives. "I didn't come to Lagos to be ordinary," she reminded herself whenever her salary barely covered rent, NEPA bills, and data subscriptions. She wanted more, and she was determined to get it. By 2018, she had been promoted to Senior Customer Service Officer, earning 150,000 naira. That was a big deal. She rented a mini flat in Bagada, a small self-contained space with a kitchenette and constant light from a shared generator. The day she moved in, she danced around the empty rooms, playing Burna Boy's Ye on repeat. This was progress. This was the beginning. Yet even as she stood on her tiny balcony watching the Lagos skyline twinkle at night, Ifeoma felt the pull of something more. The city had welcomed her, taught her, changed her, but it had also shown her how vast the gap was between surviving and truly living large. And deep down, she vowed she would cross that gap, no matter what it took. She could feel it in her bones that she was meant for greatness. By early 2022, Ifeoma had turned 28, and the calendar seemed to flip its pages with deliberate cruelty. Every new month brought fresh anxiety, not just from the rising cost of living in Lagos, but from the relentless stream of phone calls and WhatsApp voice notes from Onitsha. It always started the same way. On Sunday afternoons, just after church service back home, her mother's name would flash on the screen. Ifeoma would let it ring twice, steeling herself, before picking up. "My daughter, Hidaka Emir." Mama Ngozi would begin sweetly, asking how she was. But within minutes, the conversation would shift. "I was in church today, oh. You won't believe who I saw, Chioma. Your mate from secondary school. She came with her 3rd child. Fine boy, fat cheeks, looking like his father." The husband is now a manager in that oil company in Port Harcourt. They just bought a new SUV. Ah, God is good. Ifeoma would murmur agreement, staring at her reflection in the small mirror above her dressing table, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was hard to hear about everyone else's success when she felt stuck in the grind. Then the hammer would fall. But Ifeoma, when will we carry your own child? You are not getting younger. These your cousins, Adana, Ojeki, even little Neka that you used to carry on your back, they are all married. Some have 2, 3 children. Me, I'm tired of people asking me in the market, Mama Ifeoma, where is your daughter's husband? Is she not ready? What do I tell them? Sometimes her mother would cry softly over the phone, the kind of calculated tears that only Igbo mothers perfect after years of practice. Do you want me to die without seeing my grandchildren? Is that how you will repay me for all the suffering I went through to train you? Papa was quieter, but no less persistent. He preferred Saturday mornings, when he sat in his shop waiting for the first customers. His calls were shorter, gruffer. Ifeoma, listen to me. Marriage is not fashion. It is security. A woman needs a man to stand for her in this world. All these Lagos boys that are promising you heaven and earth, many of them are not serious. Find one good man. Bring him home. Let us know him. Time is going. He would pause, then add the line that always stung. Your mother is worrying herself sick. If anything happens to her because of this thing, it is on your head. With every call, the pressure mounted. The expectations felt like a heavy weight on her shoulders. It was a constant reminder of the path she was supposed to follow. But Ifeoma was determined to carve her own way. She had dreams. The pressure wasn't just coming from home. It felt like it was everywhere. Seriously, it was like a weight hanging over Ifeoma, pushing down on her from all sides. At work, during lunch breaks in the bank's canteen, her married colleagues would tease her endlessly. Ife baby, your fine face is wasting all these men in Lagos and nobody has captured you? They'd laugh, but she could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. It wasn't just playful banter. It felt like a constant reminder of her single status, like a spotlight shining on her while she just wanted to blend in. Church was even worse. The Young Adults Fellowship had turned into a marriage market, and every testimony night felt like a competition. Someone would stand up and say, I want to thank God for bringing my husband/wife. The congregation would erupt in applause, and Ifeoma could feel dozens of eyes on the single ones, silently saying, your turn is next, no choice. It was exhausting. Even social media joined the chorus. Her timeline was filled with engagement photos, bridal showers, and baby dedications. Old classmates posted pictures from their traditional weddings in the village, smiling under heavy coral beads, and the captions were always the same. God did it. Favor. Testimony loading. It was like everyone was living their best lives while she felt stuck in neutral. One Sunday in March 2022, Ifeoma attended a friend's wedding in Ikoyi. The venue was stunning. White drapes, crystal chandeliers, and a live band playing Burna Boy and Wizkid. The bride, a former coursemate who had been single just 2 years earlier, arrived in a Rolls-Royce. Can you imagine? As she danced down the aisle with her husband, a tech entrepreneur who reportedly owned property in Canada, the officiating pastor declared, delay is not denial. God makes all things beautiful in his time. The entire congregation shouted, Amen. Ifeoma clapped along, but inside, something twisted. She couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was looking at her, wondering when she'd be next. After the reception, while waiting for an Uber under the hotel's grand portico, her mother called again. Did you go to any wedding today? I saw pictures on Facebook. That girl you know, Ujunwa, she married that doctor. You were mates in university. Ifeoma, what are you waiting for? Do you want to do a PhD in singleness? Ifeoma ended the call quickly, claiming network issues, and stared at the Lagos night sky. The city glittered below, lights from high-rises, moving cars on the bridge, the promise of endless possibilities. But for the first time, she felt the weight of time pressing down on her chest like a physical thing. That night, alone in her mini-flat in Bagada, she opened WhatsApp and scrolled through Emeka's old messages. They had been dating for nearly 2 years now. He sent good morning prayers every day, checked if she had eaten, and always ended with, I love you more than yesterday. Emeka was good, there was no denying that. He was responsible, God-fearing, and treated her with respect. But he wasn't rich. Not yet. His salary as a site engineer barely covered his family obligations and the small plot he was buying back in the village. Their future together looked steady and predictable: a modest flat, kids in public schools, holidays in Obudu, or the village at Christmas. Was that enough? Ifeoma lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly in the heat. She thought of her mother's tears, her father's warnings, the wedding she had just attended, and the ticking biological clock that everyone loved to mention. "I'm not ready to settle," she whispered to the empty room. "I want more. I deserve more." But deep down, a small voice asked, "What if more never comes? What if Emeka is the best you will ever get?" She pushed the voice away, turned off the light, and scrolled through Instagram until sleep finally claimed her. The pressure was mounting, and Ifeoma could feel the walls closing in. She just didn't know yet how far she would go to escape them. Ifeoma first noticed Emeka on a rainy Saturday afternoon in 2020, inside the crowded auditorium of the Young Adults Fellowship at the Pentecostal Church in Anthony Village. The topic that day was building godly relationships, and the guest speaker, a popular marriage counselor, had just finished warning the singles against emotional fornication when the rain started pounding the zinc roof like 1,000 angry drums. Power failed mid-prayer, plunging the hall into semi-darkness. Phones came out as torches, and the ushers scrambled to connect the standby generator. In the confusion, Ifeoma found herself squeezed between two overperfumed sisters on a plastic chair that was too small for three. She was about to stand and move when a calm voice beside her said, "Sister, there's an empty seat here. Come and sit properly before this chair collapses." She turned and saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple sky blue native shirt that looked freshly ironed. His smile was easy, his Igbo accent thick but gentle, like someone who grew up in the village but had spent enough time in the city to soften the edges. He shifted to make space, and she slid onto the chair beside him. "Thank you," she muttered, adjusting her wrapper. "No problem. This rain no get respect at all," he replied, and they both laughed quietly as the generator finally roared to life and the lights flickered back on. His name was Emeka Okonkwo, from Umudik in Imo State. He introduced himself properly after service, under the dripping eaves outside the church gate while waiting for the rain to ease. "I'm a site engineer with a construction firm in Lekki," he said, holding a black umbrella he offered to share. "We're currently handling a road project around Chevron Drive." Ifeoma nodded politely, sizing him up. He wasn't flashy, no gold chain, no designer sneakers, just clean leather sandals and a simple wristwatch. His Toyota Corolla 2008 model was parked modestly among the newer cars belonging to other brethren. But there was something solid about him: steady eyes, firm handshake, the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need to shout. They exchanged numbers for fellowship updates, and he called her 2 days later, not with sweet talk or immediate love declarations, but to ask if she had eaten and to share a short Bible verse he said God laid on his heart for her. Ifeoma smiled despite herself. It was old-fashioned, almost too respectful, but refreshing in a city where many men opened with "Hey sexy" or "Send me your hot pics." Their first proper date was simple: a Thursday evening after work. He picked her up from the bank in Ikeja, drove to Maryland, and bought them shawarma and Chapman from a popular roadside spot. They sat in his car eating and talking as traffic crawled past. He told her about his family: father retired from teaching, mother selling provisions in Owerri main market, 3 younger siblings he was sponsoring through school. "I'm the first son," he said, wiping sauce from his mouth. "Responsibility no day finish, but God day help." Ifeoma shared her own story: Onitsha upbringing, the move to Lagos, her dreams of rising higher in the banking sector. She watched his reactions carefully. He listened without interrupting, nodding, asking thoughtful questions. When she mentioned wanting to one day own a house in Lekki, he smiled and said, "Amen. With God, all things are possible, but we go take him one step at a time." Over the next months, their relationship grew steadily. Emeka was consistent. Good morning and good night messages every day, calls during lunch breaks to pray together, picking her up for midweek service, dropping her off afterward even when it meant driving extra miles in traffic. On weekends, he'd bring food from his mother's kitchen, oku with ofe nsala or jollof rice wrapped in foil, saying, "Mama said I should not let my future wife hunger." He was the first man who ever knelt to pray for her in person. One night, after a long day when a difficult customer had reduced her to tears at work, he came over to her mini flat, sat her down, held her hands, and prayed until she felt peace return. Then he made her laugh by imitating the customer's dramatic complaints. By their first anniversary of knowing each other, Emeka had become a fixture in her life. He knew her menstrual cycle, remembered her colleagues' names, sent her recharge cards when data finished unexpectedly, and never pressured her for sex, insisting they would wait until marriage so God will bless us without hindrance. Friends teased her. Ife baby, this one nah husband material 1,000 yards oh. Even her mother, after a surprise video call where she inspected Emeka, gave reluctant approval. He looks responsible, Mama said. And he's Igbo. At least no tribal walla. But in quiet moments alone, Ifeoma wrestled with doubts. Emeka was good, exceptionally good, but he wasn't rich. His salary was decent, but after sending money home and saving for his siblings' fees, little was left for extravagance. Their dates remained modest. Eateries, walks at Ndebezi Kanu Park, occasional cinema when there was a discount. Emeka's love was steady and warm, like the gentle Harmattan sun, but Ifeoma's gaze kept drifting toward brighter, hotter flames. By late 2020, as their relationship hit the 2-year mark, she began a quiet, almost instinctive search for a man who could match the vivid images in her mind, the ones she'd gathered since childhood from magazines, movies, and now Instagram. It started innocently enough. At weddings, she no longer sat quietly with Emeka's arm around her. Instead, she scanned the room. Who rolled in with the newest Prado? Whose Oso Oak looked like it was imported? Which groom's friends were tossing around dollars instead of naira? She took note of the guys who danced with swagger, the ones whose watches gleamed under the lights, and the ones whose partners dripped in gold. After the reception, she'd casually ask friends, "Who's that tall guy in the navy blue Agbada? The one with the G-Wagon parked outside?" The answers fueled her imagination. "Oh, that's Brother Chuka. He's into oil and gas. Owns fuel stations in Abuja." Or, "That's Engineer Nonso. Crypto and real estate. Just got back from London last week." Each name turned into a possibility, a what if. It was like a game for her, a treasure hunt where the prize was a man who could elevate her life. Social media became her secret playground. She set up a Finsta, a fake Instagram account with no profile picture and a nondescript username, so she could follow Legos big shots without Emeka or mutual friends catching on. She scrolled through endless posts of men posing beside private jets at Murtala Mohammed Airport or lounging on yachts in Dubai Marina, or in front of half-finished mansions with captions like, "Grinding silently. Let the results make the noise." She didn't like any of the posts, but she studied them. The brands they wore, the hotels they tagged, and the kind of women they showcased, usually light-skinned influencers with hourglass figures and long Brazilian hair. Sometimes, she went to events alone, telling Emeka she was hanging out with the girls from work. There were bank end-of-year parties at Eco Hotel, industry nights at Quillox, album launches in Lekki where bottles of Ace of Spades popped like fireworks. She dressed to impress. Bodycon dresses that hugged her curves, high heels that made her legs look endless, and makeup that took 2 hours and 3 YouTube tutorials. She learned to stand near the VIP section, close enough to be noticed, but not so close that she looked desperate. Men approached, of course. Some were bold. "Fine girl, what didn't you day drink? Let me spoil you small tonight." Others were smoother, sliding into her DMs after spotting her tagged in a friend's story. There was the importer who promised to whisk her away to Paris for shopping if she spent a weekend with him at his Banana Island guest house. There was the politician's son who sent her $10,000 worth of airtime just for saying good morning. There was even a married bank MD who offered to rent her a 2-bedroom in Ikoyi and set her up with a boutique. No strings, just enjoyment. Each time, something held her back. The importer was too old, 50-something with a potbelly. The politician's son posted too many guns and charms on his page. The bank MD already had 3 known baby mamas. None of them felt like husband material. They felt like detours, not destinations. She wanted the full package: wealth, status, and a ring. Someone who would make her mother scream "Chimo" on the phone and make her old classmates green with envy at the next secondary school reunion. She even tried church, convinced that God could still deliver a wealthy, spirit-filled man. She visited bigger ministries, The ones with branches in London and Atlanta, where the parking lots looked like luxury car showrooms. She attended midweek services, joined the workers' unit, and lingered after service to chat with the brothers in the protocol department. But the truly rich ones were either already married, engaged to daughters of generals and governors, or suspiciously uninterested in commitment. One Sunday in 2021, she went to a popular church in Lekki Phase 1. The service was electric. Thousands of people, live orchestra, LED screens flashing testimonies of business breakthroughs. During the offering, the pastor called for a covenant seed of 500,000 naira and above for those believing God for marital settlement. Dozens of sharply dressed men rushed forward. Ifeoma's heart raced. She watched them closely, memorizing faces, outfits, and car keys dangling from fingers. After service, she positioned herself near the exit, pretending to wait for someone. One of the men, a handsome, dark-skinned brother in a tailored suit, walked past, nodding politely. She smiled. He smiled back. For a moment, hope flared. Then a stunning woman in a red dress and Louboutins rushed up to him, slipped her arm through his, and they walked toward a waiting Bentley. Ifeoma's smile froze on her face. On the bus ride home, she stared out the window at the glittering Lekki skyline and felt a sharp, unfamiliar pain, something between frustration and fear. 2 years with Emeka, and still no better option had come up. Every promising lead ended in disappointment. Too old, too married, too dubious, too unavailable. That night, Emeka called as usual. "My love, how was service today? Hope you enjoyed the word." She forced brightness into her voice. "It was powerful, baby." The pastor preached on favor. "Amen. Oh, God will favor us. Just keep praying. Our time is coming." After the call, she lay in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling through Instagram stories of women announcing engagements to men who looked exactly like the ones she had been chasing. One caption stopped her cold. A former colleague from the bank, now engaged to an oil magnate, wrote, "He found me when I stopped looking. God's timing is perfect." Ifeoma dropped the phone on her chest and stared at the ceiling. Was she looking too hard? Was she missing God's best by chasing shadows? The next morning, Emeka sent his usual good morning message with a Bible verse. Proverbs 18 verse 22. "Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord." She read it 3 times, feeling the weight of expectation, the ticking clock, the fear that her search for better might leave her with nothing at all. But even as doubt crept in, the hunger remained. She wasn't ready to give up the dream. Not yet. Somewhere out there, she told herself, was the man who would give her both love and luxury. The one who would make all the waiting, all the pressure, all the secret searching worthwhile. She just had to keep looking. By mid-2022, Ifeoma's search felt like chasing smoke. Every promising lead turned into disappointment. The oil and gas brother stopped replying after she turned down his hotel room invite just to talk. The crypto trader turned out to be living in his cousin's boys' quarters while posting rented Lamborghinis on Instagram. The bank executive who promised her the world got transferred to Kano and ghosted her completely. The silence from all those DMs and subtle smiles at events began to weigh on her. Nights that used to be spent refreshing her phone for new messages now ended with her staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of her neighbor's generator, and wondering if she had set her standards too high. Emeka, meanwhile, remained constant. He never asked where she went on the evenings she claimed to be with the girls. He still sent morning devotions, still called to pray before she slept, still showed up with food or small gifts, a new phone case, a pair of earrings from Balagan Market, a tub of ice cream when her period cramps were bad. His love was quiet, undramatic, the kind that didn't need billboards or social media validation. One Saturday in July, he invited her to his small rented flat in Ojodu Burger for the first time. It was modest, 1 bedroom, parlor, kitchen, but spotless. He had cooked for her, ofo nugbu with pounded yam, the bitter leaf washed perfectly, the soup thick with stockfish and cow leg. As they ate at the small dining table, he spoke about the future with the calm certainty of a man who had already mapped it out. "I've almost finished paying for the plot in the village," he said, molding the pounded yam with practiced hands. "Next year, I'll start the foundation. Once the house is roofed, we can do introduction. Then court, then church wedding. Small and beautiful. No need to borrow money and suffer later." Ifeoma nodded, swallowing the soup that tasted just like her mother's. It was comforting, familiar, safe. After eating, he pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold engagement ring, not flashy, but real gold, bought with months of saving. He didn't go down on one knee dramatically like in the movies. Instead, he took her hand across the table and said, Ifioma, I know I'm not rich yet, but I promise you, with God and hard work, I will never let you lack. Will you marry me? Tears came to her eyes unexpectedly, not because the proposal was grand, but because it was sincere. In that moment, she saw the life he was offering. The traditional wedding was set for December 2022, and her parents were absolutely over the moon when she finally shared Emeka's pictures along with the big news. Mama Ngozi called every day for weeks, buzzing with questions about the list, the bride price, and the Aso-ebi color. At last, my daughter has found her man, she exclaimed to anyone who'd listen in Onitsha main market. You could practically hear the pride in her voice, right? The introduction ceremony in August was small, but so sweet. Emeka's family made the trip from Imo State, bringing along coconut, palm wine, and even a goat. Can you imagine the excitement? Papa Emmanuel prayed heartfelt blessings, his voice shaking with emotion. Mama Ngozi hugged Emeka tightly, whispering, Take care of my daughter, oh, she's my only girl. It was such a touching moment, filled with love and warmth. But even as everything moved forward, Ifioma felt a quiet heaviness in her chest. She kept telling herself it was normal, just cold feet, right? Every bride goes through this. But late at night, when she tried on the engagement dress her tailor was working on, she'd stand in front of the mirror and wonder, is this really it? Am I giving up too soon? Those thoughts were like little shadows creeping in, making her question everything. She posted the proposal pictures on Instagram with the caption, God did it red heart hashtag engaged hashtag God's time. The likes and congratulations came pouring in like a flood of support. Old classmates chimed in with finally and beautiful couple. But then she noticed something else. Some of the girls who had been chasing after the same big men were the first to type Amen under her post. It was a little bittersweet, you know? A few had quietly settled with guys like Emeka, civil servants, teachers, engineers. Their lives looked peaceful, their kids healthy, and their marriages stable. It made her think, what does it all mean? One evening, her closest friend from the bank, Ada, dropped by with a bottle of red wine to celebrate. I'm so happy for you. Oh, Ada said, pouring generously into plastic cups. Emeka is a good man. Not all of us will marry Dangote. Some of us will marry builders, and those builders will build us a good home. Ifioma laughed, but Ada's words stuck with her. It was a reminder that love comes in many forms, and stability can be just as beautiful as the fairy tale. But still, the doubt lingered like a cloud, casting shadows over her heart. On the day of the traditional wedding in Onitsha, the sun was shining bright, almost like it was celebrating with them. Ifioma wore coral beads heavy around her neck and wrists, her geli tied high like a crown. Emeka's family showered her with money, and the MC praised her beauty until she was blushing. When her father handed her over to Emeka's people, saying, This is the child we have trained with care. Guard her well. Tears streamed down her face for real. It was such a powerful moment, filled with love, pride, and a touch of sadness. As they danced later under the canopy, Emeka held her close and whispered, Thank you for saying yes. I will make you proud, Ife. Just watch. She smiled up at him, wanting to believe it with her whole heart. But even as the drums beat and the palm wine flowed, even with her mother ululating and her cousins capturing every moment for TikTok, a small voice deep inside whispered, You didn't choose this because it was your dream. You chose it because you ran out of time. She pushed that voice down, burying it under the music, laughter, and the weight of everyone's expectations. It was easier that way, right? Just to focus on the joy of the day and the love surrounding her. In February 2023, they would have the white wedding in Lagos. For now, she was officially Mrs. Ifioma Okonkwo-Obi. And though she told herself she was content, repeating Ada's words about builders building homes, praying every night for God to remove any doubt from her heart, she couldn't completely silence that quiet, persistent question. What if there was still more out there? What if she had settled too soon? The ring on her finger felt solid, real, binding. But her heart, restless and ambitious, wasn't fully convinced. It was like a constant tug-of-war between her dreams and her reality. Shadows of Ambition. Chapter 7. The Wedding Day. February 18th, 2023, dawned bright and hot in Lagos. The kind of dry season morning where the sun seemed determined to remind everyone it was in charge. The white wedding was scheduled for 11 a.m. at a popular Pentecostal church in Surulere, the same one where Emeka had attended since moving to Lagos years ago. The hall was rented for the occasion, a modest but well-kept auditorium with blue plastic chairs arranged neatly, a raised altar draped in white satin, and ceiling fans whirring steadily against the heat. Ifeoma woke up at 5 a.m. in her auntie's flat in Amuwo Odofin, where she had spent the night according to tradition. The makeup artist was already there, setting up ring lights and brushes on the dining table. Her bridesmaids, Ada from the bank, two cousins flown in from Onitsha, and a childhood friend from secondary school, bustled around in matching silk robes, sipping tea and gossiping. "You're finally becoming Mrs. Okonkwo today?" "Oh," Ada teased, snapping pictures with her phone. "No more running." Ifeoma managed a laugh, but her stomach churned. She sat still as the makeup artist blended foundation over her face, applied false lashes that felt heavy on her eyelids, and contoured her cheeks until she looked like a version of herself she barely recognized in the mirror. The gown hung on the wardrobe door, a simple mermaid-style dress with lace appliques and a long train, bought off the rack in Balagan Market and tailored to fit perfectly. It wasn't the designer ball gown she had once pinned on her secret Pinterest board, but it was beautiful, and Emeka had paid for it without a fuss. By 8 a.m., the bridal car arrived, a decorated white Camry borrowed from a church brother. The driver honked twice, and the bridesmaids squealed. Ifeoma's mother burst into fresh tears when she saw her daughter in full bridal look. "My baby, look how stunning you are. God has answered my prayer." Mama Ngozi dabbed her eyes with the edge of her gelly, careful not to smudge her own makeup. Papa stood quietly in his senator's suit, pride shining in his eyes though he said little, as usual. The drive to Surulere was slow, classic Saturday morning traffic on Apapa-Ashidi Expressway, but the car AC worked, and the bridesmaids kept the mood light with music and jokes. Ifeoma stared out the tinted window at the familiar chaos of Lagos. Hawkers balancing trays of gala on their heads, Okadas weaving dangerously, Danfos packed with passengers. Everything felt both ordinary and surreal, like she was watching her own life from a distance. As they pulled up to the church, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Guests in colorful outfits filled the entrance, laughter and chatter mixing in the air. Ifeoma felt her heart race, a mix of nerves and anticipation. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for, but also the moment that made her question everything. As she stepped out of the car, the sun glinted off her gown, and for a brief moment, she felt like a princess. But then the doubts crept back in. What if this wasn't the fairy tale she had always imagined? What if she was just going through the motions? But there was no time to dwell on those thoughts. The music swelled, and she was swept into the church, where her family and friends were waiting, all eyes on her. The pastor greeted her with a warm smile, and as she walked down the aisle, she could see Emeka waiting for her at the altar, looking dapper in his suit. His smile was infectious, and for a moment, all her worries faded away. The ceremony unfolded beautifully, filled with laughter, prayers, and heartfelt speeches. Ifeoma felt the love surrounding her, and she couldn't help but smile. But deep down, that small voice still whispered, "Is this enough?" As they exchanged vows, Emeka's words resonated in her heart. "I promise to love you, support you, and be your partner in all things." It was sweet, and part of her believed it. But another part wondered if she was ready to commit to this path, to embrace a life that felt both exciting and terrifying. After the ceremony, the reception was a whirlwind of dancing, food, and laughter. Friends and family celebrated, and for a while, Ifeoma lost herself in the joy of the moment. But as the night wore on, the nagging questions returned. Was she really ready for this? Was this the life she had always dreamed of? Or had she settled for what was easy? As the last dance ended and the guests began to leave, Ifeoma felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She looked at Emeka, who was busy chatting with his friends, and felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something beautiful, even if it wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined. With the night sky above them, she whispered, The church parking lot was absolutely buzzing with excitement, already filling up as family members in matching asoebi. This stunning royal blue Ankara with gold embroidery, milled around snapping photos. Seriously, it was like a mini fashion show out there. Kids were dashing between cars in their adorable little suits and dresses, laughter ringing out as ushers in crisp white shirts and sleek black skirts guided guests with the friendliest smiles. You could just feel the joy in the air, right? Once inside, the hall was a sight to behold. Picture this: white drapes cascading from the ceiling, fresh flowers lining the aisle, and a charming arch of roses and baby's breath standing proudly at the altar. The choir was warming up, their voices lifting in a popular worship song that everyone seemed to know. You are the love of my life. You are the reason I'm alive. You could feel the anticipation building with every note. Emeka stood at the front with his groomsmen, looking sharp in a perfectly fitted black tuxedo. I mean, he looked like he just stepped out of a magazine. When he spotted Ifeoma at the entrance on her father's arm, his face lit up with the biggest smile she'd ever seen on him. No tears for Emeka. He wasn't really the crying type, but his eyes sparkled with pure joy, and he clasped his hands tightly in front of him like he was trying to hold it all together. Can you imagine that moment? Just pure happiness. Then the procession kicked off. The bridesmaids strolled in first, looking stunning in their dresses, followed by the little flower girls scattering petals that stuck to the slightly sweaty floor. And when it was Ifeoma's turn, the organist switched to the classic "Here Comes the Bride," and every head turned to look. You could practically feel the collective gasp in the room. She walked slowly, gripping her father's arm tightly, feeling the weight of every gaze on her. Some guests smiled warmly. Auntie Chioma waved discreetly from the third row, looking proud as ever, while others stared, sizing up the dress, the makeup, the whole vibe. Her mom sat in the front pew, already dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief, surrounded by relatives whispering, "See our wife." It was such a sweet moment, filled with love and pride. At the altar, Papa placed her hand in Emeka's and stepped back with a nod. Emeka squeezed her fingers gently and whispered, "You look so beautiful, Ife. Thanks for today." You could just feel the warmth between them, like they were the only two people in the room. The pastor, a lively guy known for his short, engaging sermons, started with prayers that had everyone nodding along, then had family members read scripture. When it was time for vows, Emeka went first. His voice was steady and sincere as he declared, "Ifeoma Nwosu, before God and everyone here, I promise to love you, cherish you, and provide for you as Christ loves the church. In good times and bad, in health and sickness, I'll stand by you. I'll build with you, pray with you, and grow with you until death do us part." Guests murmured, "Amen," and you could feel the energy in the room shift, everyone totally invested in this moment. Then it was Ifeoma's turn. She repeated the words carefully, promising to submit, love, and honor. But as she spoke, a strange detachment washed over her, like she was reading lines from a script. The vows felt true in theory, but something in her heart hesitated, like signing a contract she hadn't fully read. It's a weird feeling, right? When everything looks perfect on the outside, but inside, there's this little voice saying, "Are you sure?" The ring exchange brought applause, and the kiss, Emeka's lips soft and respectful, drew cheers and whistles from the younger guests. The pastor pronounced them husband and wife, and the choir burst into a joyful rendition of "Blessed be the name of the Lord." It was such a beautiful moment, filled with joy and celebration. The reception kicked off right after in the church compound under two big canopies. The food was incredible: jollof rice, fried rice, pounded yam, egusi, and pepper soup served generously. Seriously, if you weren't careful, you could easily eat your weight in that deliciousness. A live band played highlife and gospel tunes, while Emeka's family danced energetically, showering the couple with money during their first dance. Ifeoma's cousins formed a train behind her, singing traditional songs and hyping her up like she was a queen. Emeka held her close as they swayed to a cover of Banky W's Yes/No. It was such a sweet moment. "I can't believe you're my wife now," he whispered in her ear, his voice filled with pride. "I go day happy every day because of you." How sweet is that? She smiled up at him, trying to feel the joy everyone expected. And for a moment, she did. The warmth of family, the laughter, the relief on her parents' faces. Mama Ngozi kept hugging her, saying, "At last, at last." It was a whirlwind of emotions, and you could see the love surrounding them. But in quieter moments, when she sat down to eat and watched Emeka greet guests with his easy smile, or when she spotted the modest Toyota Camry decorated with ribbons waiting to take them to their small flat, she felt that familiar tug. This was it. This was the life she had chosen. No more searching. No more waiting for the better man who never came. It was a bittersweet realization, full of hope and uncertainty. As the sun set and guests began to leave, Emeka grabbed her bridal bag and headed to the car. They drove away amid honks and cheers, rice grains still stuck to the windows. It was such a classic wedding send-off, right? In the car, he reached for her hand. "Mrs. Okonkwo," he said softly, testing the title with pride. She turned to him and smiled. "Mr. Okonkwo." And for that moment, on that day, she meant it. But deep down, where ambition still flickered like a stubborn flame, she knew the real test was just beginning. Settling into marriage. The first few months of married life flew by in a whirlwind of adjustments and little discoveries. Ifeoma and Emeka moved into the two-bedroom flat in Bagada that Emeka had been renting for ages. It was on the second floor of a yellow Face Me I Face You block, and Ifeoma immediately swapped out the burgundy curtains for lighter cream ones to brighten the parlor. I mean, who wouldn't want a little brightness in their life, right? The kitchen was tiny, barely enough for two people to squeeze past each other, but it had a four-burner gas cooker and a small fridge that hummed along nicely. It was cozy, to say the least. Their bedroom held a 6x6 mattress on a wooden frame, a creaky wardrobe, and a dressing table Ifeoma snagged secondhand from Gigi and painted white. It was like a little sanctuary for them, filled with their little quirks and touches. Emeka woke up every morning at 5:30 for prayers, his deep voice filling the flat as he thanked God for the gift of a wife and asked for provision and protection. Ifeoma would half open her eyes, mumble "Amen," and drift back to sleep until her 6:30 alarm. It was a routine that felt comforting, even if it took some getting used to. He made Milo for both of them before heading out to work, kissing her forehead and saying, "Have a beautiful day, Mrs. Okonkwo." She would smile sleepily, still getting used to the title. It was a little surreal, but also incredibly sweet. Weekdays followed a rhythm. Emeka left early for work, sometimes not returning until 8 or 9 p.m. if there was overtime. Ifeoma's bank hours were more predictable, 8 to 5, but the traffic from Ikeja to Bagada could turn a 30-minute journey into 2 hours of choking exhaust and loud Fuji music from neighboring Danfoss. It was a daily battle, but she learned to embrace the chaos, finding little joys in the journey. Evenings were for cooking, and she experimented with new recipes from YouTube: jollof with a twist, vegetable stir-fry, peppered chicken. She was determined to impress Emeka, and honestly, it was a fun way to unwind after a long day. They would sit together at their small dining table, sharing stories about their day, laughing over silly things, and enjoying the food she'd prepared. It felt like a little slice of normalcy in their new life together. As the weeks turned into months, Ifeoma found herself adjusting to the rhythm of married life. There were ups and downs, of course. Some days were filled with laughter and love, while others felt heavy with unspoken worries. But through it all, they were learning to communicate better, to understand each other's quirks and needs. It was a journey, and every step felt significant. And as they settled into their new life, Ifeoma couldn't shake that feeling deep down. This was just the beginning. There were dreams to chase, adventures to embark on, and a life to build together. She felt a flicker of excitement, knowing that while the road ahead might be challenging, it would also be filled with beautiful moments, love, and growth. So, here's to Ifeoma and Emeka. May their journey be as. Saturdays were all about house fellowship, which was basically a fun mix of cleaning and jamming to some seriously uplifting gospel hits from artists like Sinak, Nathaniel Bassey, and Mercy Chinwo. You could always count on Emeka to take on the heavy lifting, like hauling water from the well when the power went out, scrubbing the bathroom until it sparkled, and sweeping the balcony until it looked pristine. Meanwhile, Ifeoma was all about tackling the laundry by hand, hanging clothes out to dry under that blazing Lagos sun. And let me tell you, she always found time to chat with the neighbors' wives about everything from rising food prices to the latest gossip about whose husband just splurged on a new generator. Sundays were a different vibe altogether. It was church first, then visiting family or friends. Emika's younger sister, Kayamika, often crashed at their place for the weekend, spreading her things across the parlor and pitching in with chores. Every Sunday evening, Ifeoma's mom would call, and you could bet she'd ask the same old questions. How's marriage treating you? Is Emika taking care of you? When are you two having kids? Oh, that kid question. It hung over them like a soft, nagging cloud. They had decided to wait a year, to enjoy ourselves first and save a little, Emika said, but Ifeoma felt the pressure from both families. At church, during baby dedications, you could see the women nudging her and whispering, "You're next in Jesus' name." She'd smile and say, "Amen," but inside, she felt this pull against rushing things. It was like everyone had a timeline, and she was somehow falling behind. Money was the quiet force behind everything. Emika's salary as a site engineer was decent, around 450,000 naira a month after tax. But once he sent money home, paid Kayamika's school fees, fueled their old Corolla, and covered rent and bills, there wasn't much left for fun. Ifeoma's salary, now 280,000 after a small promotion, helped, but Lagos had this magical way of swallowing cash whole. You know what I mean? Data subscriptions, hair and nails, transport, offerings, tithes, and the occasional asoabi for colleagues' events added up faster than you could blink. But they managed, though. Emika was careful, almost frugal. He'd buy groceries in bulk from a wholesale store in Oshodi, haggle at the market like a pro, and only eat out for special occasions. Ifeoma, on the other hand, had gotten used to little treats, like shawarma on Fridays and ice cream at Cold Stone with her girls. So, adjusting to a tighter budget was a bit of a struggle. No more impulse buys on Jumia. No more Uber rides when Danfo was cheaper. She learned to whip up big pots of soup on Sundays to last the week, freezing portions in plastic containers for easy meals later. But you know how it is. That dissatisfaction crept in slowly, like damp rising through walls. It all started with small comparisons. At work, her colleague Sandra, married to a guy in oil and gas, would stroll in with a brand new iPhone 14 Pro Max and tales of weekend getaways to Ape Resort. "We just needed to clear our heads," Sandra would say, casually showing off photos of infinity pools and candlelit dinners. Ifeoma would congratulate her, but later, on the bus ride home, she'd feel this pinch in her chest. Scrolling through Instagram didn't help either. The wedding glow of other couples from 2023 had morphed into baby announcements, new cars, and housewarming parties in Lekki Gardens or Chevron Drive estates. One old classmate even posted pictures from a baby moon in Zanzibar, her belly round and glowing, with the caption, "God upgraded us. From glory to glory." Ifeoma would like the post, type "Congratulations, sis," then close the app and stare out the bus window at the endless traffic lights on Ikordu Road. It was like everyone was moving forward while she felt stuck in place. Emika noticed her quiet moods. One night, after she had spent dinner scrolling silently, he gently took her phone and set it aside. "Ife, talk to me. You've been distant lately." She hesitated, but then it all came pouring out. The feeling that life was moving too slowly, that others their age were arriving while they were still preparing. She didn't mention the specific comparisons. She was careful not to make him feel inadequate, but he caught on. He pulled her close on the sofa, wrapping his arms around her. "My love, I know it's tough. Lagos is hard, but we're building something solid. Those people you see shining on social media, many of them are just borrowing light. One day, by God's grace, we'll buy our land here in Lagos, build our house, drive a better car. But we'll do it without debt, without shame. Just trust me." She nodded, resting her head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. His words made sense. He was right. But that longing, the deep, aching desire for more, didn't just vanish with logic. To fill the restlessness, Ifeoma dove into church activities. The old church in Surulere felt too familiar, too tied to their wedding memories. One Sunday, a friend invited her to Victory Tabernacle Ministries in Agba, a fast-growing Pentecostal church known for its prosperity teachings, huge choir, and charismatic founder, Pastor Victor Okechukwu. The auditorium was massive, with giant screens, air conditioning that actually worked, and a parking lot filled with shiny SUVs. From the first visit, Ifeoma was hooked. The worship was electric: drums, keyboards, backup singers in matching outfits. The congregation dressed sharply, men in suits, women in designer gowns and expensive geli. During offering time, the pastor prayed over seed partners who gave hundreds of thousands, promising hundredfold returns. The testimonies were dramatic: new contracts, healing from cancer, visas to Canada. After service, Ifeoma lingered, soaking in the vibe. Young women her age chatted about business ideas, upcoming conferences in Dubai, and divine connections. One ushered her to the new member's desk, where a smiling sister welcomed her and invited her to join a department. She signed up as an usher: white blouse, black skirt, name tag. The next week, she dragged Emiko along. He attended politely but didn't seem as excited. "It's big, sure," he said on the drive home. "But let's not forget the simple gospel. All this prosperity talk. I hope it doesn't shift our focus from Christ." Ifeoma brushed it off. "It's still the word of God, baby. And the worship is powerful." She started attending midweek services alone when Emika had site work. She volunteered more hours, sticking around to help arrange chairs or welcome VIPs. Slowly, the church became her escape, the place where possibilities felt real, where the messages reassured her that lack wasn't God's plan, that she was destined for abundance. In the quiet of their flat, as Emika slept beside her, breathing deeply after another long day, Ifeoma would lie awake, staring at the ceiling fan turning in slow circles. "We're fine," she told herself. "We have peace. We have love. We have God." But the hunger, the one born in Onitsha markets and fed by Lagos lights, whispered back, "Fine is not enough. You were made for more." And in the distance, like a drumbeat growing louder, she could almost hear the worship songs of Victory Tabernacle calling her name. It was a Sunday in June 2024 when Ifeoma first stepped into Victory Tabernacle Ministries. Sandra, her colleague from the bank, had been inviting her for months. "Ifeoma, you need to come and taste this anointing," Sandra would say during lunch breaks, her eyes sparkling as she described miracles, breakthroughs, and the kind of worship that shifts atmospheres. Ifeoma had always brushed it off with a polite, "one of these days," but that morning, after another quiet night of scrolling through pictures of other people's vacations and new homes, she felt restless enough to say yes. Walking into the church that Sunday felt like stepping into a whole new world. The energy was palpable, almost electric, and she could feel it tingling in her fingertips. As she took her seat, she couldn't help but notice how everyone around her seemed so full of life, so ready to embrace whatever God had in store for them that day. The music kicked off, and the choir was on fire. You could see the joy on their faces, and it was contagious. Ifeoma found herself swaying to the rhythm, her heart lifting with every note. Pastor Victor took the stage, and his charisma was undeniable. He spoke with such passion and conviction that it felt like he was speaking directly to her. "You are destined for greatness," he declared, and she felt a spark of hope ignite within her. For the first time in a while, Ifeoma felt like she was part of something bigger, something that could lead her to the life she had always dreamed of. After the service, she mingled with other members, sharing laughter and stories. One woman, a successful entrepreneur, talked about how her faith had guided her through tough times and led her to build a thriving business. Ifeoma was inspired. She wanted that kind of success, that kind of fulfillment. As the weeks went by, Ifeoma became a. They got there bright and early, 8:30 a.m. for the 9 a.m. first service, but the huge parking lot off Acme Road in Agba was already buzzing. I mean, it was half full of shiny SUVs, Range Rovers, G-Wagons, and even a Bentley here and there. Valets in crisp white shirts were guiding cars with impressive skill, making it look like a scene from a movie. Sandra parked her humble Hyundai toward the back, but even from there, the building was a sight to behold. Picture this: a sleek glass and steel auditorium that could fit 5,000 people, surrounded by smaller halls and a giant LED screen flashing welcome messages and upcoming events. It was like stepping into a whole new world. Inside, the air was cool and smelled amazing, like a high-end perfume shop. Seriously. Ushers in stylish black and gold uniforms greeted them with warm smiles and glossy programs. Honestly, the foyer felt like a five-star hotel lobby: marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and flat screens showing clips from past crusades and stadiums all over Africa. It was all so inviting. There was even a coffee stand serving free cappuccinos and croissants for first-timers. Ifeoma grabbed one, more out of surprise than hunger. It was a little slice of luxury she wasn't expecting. When she stepped into the auditorium, it took her breath away. Rows of cushioned seats rose in tiers, all facing a stage that looked like something out of a concert. Massive LED walls, professional lighting rigs, and a full band platform with drums behind glass, keyboards, and guitars on stands. Cameras on cranes moved silently overhead for the live broadcast, capturing every moment. Already, hundreds of people filled the seats, families in matching Osso oak, young professionals in sharp suits and designer dresses, and groups of students buzzing with excitement. The energy was palpable, and Ifeoma could feel it coursing through her. Sandra led her to seats near the middle. "This is the best view," she whispered, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "You'll feel the energy here." And boy, was she right. As the service kicked off, the worship team, 20 strong, all in coordinated white and gold, took the stage. The lights dimmed, spotlights lit up, and the opening chord of a popular gospel song blasted through the sound system. The congregation rose as one, and Ifeoma stood too, program in hand, feeling a bit unsure at first. But within minutes, the music wrapped around her, drums pounding, bass thumping in her chest, voices soaring in perfect harmony. The lead singer, a stunning woman with a voice like liquid gold, lifted her hands and shouted, "Lift him higher." Thousands responded, arms raised, some swaying, some jumping, some in tears. It was a sight to behold. Ifeoma found herself singing along, the words flashing on the giant screens. There was something electric in the air, almost tangible. She had never experienced worship like this in her smaller Surreal church. There, praise was heartfelt but pretty chill. Here, it was extravagant, wild, and cinematic. After 40 minutes of nonstop worship, the congregation finally sat down, faces glowing. You could see the joy radiating from everyone. Then came the announcements: an upcoming Holy Ghost conference in December with international guest speakers, a partners banquet for those who gave above a certain amount, and a youth summit in Dubai for kingdom influencers. Each announcement was paired with slick videos, testimonials of business breakthroughs, healings, and visas approved after sowing a seed of faith. It was all so motivating, and Ifeoma couldn't help but feel inspired. Finally, Pastor Victor Okechukwu stepped onto the stage. He was taller than she expected, mid-40s, dark-skinned, and handsome in a polished way. His suit looked custom-made, Italian wool, perfect fit, paired with a crisp white shirt and no tie, giving him a modern, approachable vibe. His shoes sparkled under the lights, catching her eye. He didn't carry notes, just a handheld microphone, and began speaking like he was continuing a conversation the congregation already knew. Somebody shout, "I am not ordinary." The response was deafening. The energy in the room was electric, and Ifeoma felt her heart race. He preached on divine positioning for kingdom wealth, quoting Deuteronomy 8, verse 18. "But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth." His delivery was captivating. Part preacher, part motivational speaker, part CEO. He paced the stage with energy, his voice rising and falling, pausing for effect. He shared stories. A member who gave her last 50,000 and landed a contract worth 50 million. A young guy who donated his car and ended up with 3 in return. God is not a user of people, Pastor Victor declared. He rewards those who seek him diligently. Your seed is not a donation. It's an investment in your future. The congregation erupted in cheers, and Ifeoma felt a surge of hope. She was hanging on every word, feeling like he was speaking directly to her. The offering segment was like nothing Ifeoma had ever seen. Different envelopes were handed out for different grace levels. Green for general offering, blue for tithe, gold for partners giving over 100,000. Ushers moved with military precision as people filed forward. Ifeoma watched in fascination as men in suits dropped thick envelopes. Women in designer gowns danced forward with smiles. No one looked ashamed of giving big amounts. They looked proud and expectant. It was a whole new world of generosity, and she found herself wanting to be a part of it. After the service, Sandra took her to the new members' lounge, a separate room with leather sofas, bottled water, and volunteers ready to register visitors. A stylish sister in a pencil skirt handed Ifeoma a form. "Welcome to your new family," she said warmly. "Which department would you like to join? Ushering? Choir? Protocol? Media? We've got something for every gift. Ifeoma hesitated, then wrote, ushering. It felt safe, visible, but not too demanding. That evening, driving home to Bagada in traffic, Ifeoma felt a strange mix of excitement and guilt. She replayed the service in her mind. The music, the energy, the testimonies, the pastor's confident smile. It felt like possibility made real. Emeka was already home, cooking stew when she walked in. "How was the new church?" he asked, stirring the pot. "It was different," she said carefully. "Very big. The worship was powerful." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "As long as Christ is preached, that's what matters. But let's not forget our home church. We got married there, remember?" She quickly agreed, not wanting to start an argument. But the following Sunday, she went back to Victory Tabernacle, alone this time, telling Emeka she wanted to attend the second service for better parking. He didn't complain, just prayed for her safe journey. Within weeks, she became a regular. She bought the uniform, a white long-sleeve blouse, black skirt, and a gold name tag with Sister Ifeoma engraved. She attended workers' training on Saturdays, learning how to smile professionally, direct VIPs to their seats, and handle offering buckets without peeking inside. It was all so new and exciting. She made new friends, Sister Bose, who sold luxury fabrics in Lekki, Brother Tund, who owned a tech startup, Sister Grace, the choir mistress whose voice could silence a room. The messages fed something deep in her. Every sermon seemed tailored to her hidden dissatisfaction. You are not meant to struggle. God wants you to dominate. Your marriage will not limit your greatness. She began tithing faithfully, even when money was tight, believing in the promise of overflow. At home, the contrast grew sharper. Emeka remained content with simplicity, saving for land, refusing to take loans, attending midweek service at their old church. He noticed her new enthusiasm, but said little, only occasionally reminding her, "Let's keep our eyes on Jesus, not on material things." But Ifeoma was already changing. She bought new outfits for church, dresses that turned heads in the auditorium. She saved for a better wig, longer and silkier. She volunteered for protocol duties that put her close to the pastor's entourage, hoping one day to be noticed. Victory Tabernacle became her escape, her hope, her vision board made real. Every Sunday, she walked through those glass doors feeling like she was stepping into the life she was meant to have. The atmosphere was intoxicating, and she couldn't get enough. As the weeks turned into months, Ifeoma found herself drawn deeper into the church's culture. She started attending small group meetings, where people shared their stories and dreams. It was inspiring to hear how others had turned their lives around through faith and community. She listened to tales of triumph, of individuals who had gone from struggling to thriving, all because they took a leap of faith. One evening, at a small group gathering, a woman named Chika shared her journey. She spoke about how she had been in a tough financial spot, but decided to trust God with her last savings. "I sowed a seed, and within weeks, I got a job offer that changed everything," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Ifeoma felt her heart race as Chika spoke. It was like she was listening to a fairy tale, but it was real life. Chika's story IGN. By early 2025, Ifeoma had become a familiar face at Victory Tabernacle. She was always front and center during services, ushering with that warm smile of hers, guiding VIPs and partners to their seats, and holding offering buckets like it was second nature. Sometimes, she even stood just a few feet away from the stage while Pastor Victor preached, soaking in every word. She knew the rhythm of every service like the back of her hand. The moment the lights dimmed for worship, the song that always got the loudest cheers, and that dramatic pause the pastor took before dropping a big revelation that had everyone on the edge of their seats. Honestly, she told herself she was there for spiritual growth. The messages about favor, dominion, and breakthroughs resonated deeply with that quiet dissatisfaction that lingered in her Bagada flat. But you know what? It was more than just the messages. She loved the vibe, the feeling of being part of something bigger, something destined for greatness. It felt like she was part of a family that shared the same hopes and dreams, and that was just magical. Pastor Victor Okechukwu had noticed her long before she even realized it. It started with small acknowledgments that made her heart flutter. One day, during a workers' meeting after service, as volunteers gathered in a side hall for a quick debrief, he walked in unexpectedly to thank them. His eyes scanned the room and landed right on her. Sister Iphioma, right? He said, pointing at her name tag. His voice was deep and smooth, the kind that commanded attention and respect, just like it did every Sunday. She froze, surprised he knew her name. Yes, sir, Pastor. You've been consistent. I see you every service, always smiling and diligent. Keep it up. God rewards faithfulness. The room buzzed with approval, and Iphioma felt heat rush to her cheeks. Thank you, Pastor. It's an honor to serve. He nodded and moved on, but that moment lingered in her mind like a sweet melody. That night, as she cooked dinner, she replayed it over and over, a small smile dancing on her lips. It was like a little spark had ignited something inside her. The next encounter came 2 weeks later. She was assigned to protocol duty for a midweek miracle service, standing at the entrance to the pastor's private holding room, making sure only authorized folks got in. It was a prestigious gig, given only to trusted workers, and she felt a rush of pride just being there. Most of the evening was quiet, department heads coming in and out, the music director, the media team. But it felt electric, like something big was about to happen. As the service wrapped up and the congregation was still buzzing after a powerful altar call, Pastor Victor emerged from the room, a little sweaty, Bible in hand. He paused when he spotted her. Sister Iphioma again, he said, smiling. You're everywhere. Are you the one guarding my peace tonight? She laughed nervously, feeling a mix of pride and shyness. Just doing my small part, sir. He studied her for a moment, longer than necessary, and it made her heart race. You have a good spirit. Calm. Not like some of these sisters who are always rushing and shouting. What's your story? Married? Kids? The question felt a bit too personal, but he asked it with such warmth that it didn't seem out of place. Yes, Pastor. Married for 2 years now. No kids yet. We're trusting God. He nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. Good. Marriage is a blessing when it's in God's timing. But don't let it limit you. Some women think once they marry, their dreams stop. No. God uses marriage to launch you higher. If you're with the right person and keep your vision alive. His words hit home like a ton of bricks. She thought about Emeka, good, steady Emeka, who wanted to save for years before buying land, who warned against running faster than grace. Thank you, Pastor. I received that word. He placed a hand briefly on her shoulder. Fatherly, anointing, nothing lingering. Come for counseling anytime. My office is open to serious workers. Ask Sister Bose to book you. Then he was gone, swept away by his protocol team toward the stage for final blessings. Iphioma stood there long after, feeling the spot where his hand had been, her heart racing more than it should have. She didn't tell Emeka about the conversation, not all of it, just that the pastor had encouraged the workers. Emeka nodded approvingly. That's good. He seems like a man of God. But Iphioma booked the counseling session the very next day. The appointment was on a Thursday evening after work. The church headquarters had a dedicated counseling wing, plush offices with leather sofas, framed photos of the pastor with presidents and celebrities, soft worship music playing in the background. She was led into a smaller waiting room where 3 other women sat quietly, one in full corporate attire, one in fancy native wear, and one looking barely 20 with heavy makeup. They were called in one by one. When Iphioma's turn came, a protocol sister escorted her down a corridor to a large office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the auditorium. Pastor Victor sat behind a massive glass desk, reviewing notes on an iPad. He looked up and smiled warmly. Sister Iphioma, welcome. Sit. She sat on the edge of a leather chair, suddenly aware of her simple work blouse and skirt. They began with prayer, his voice rich and commanding as he invoked favor, wisdom, and divine direction over her life. Then he asked gentle questions. How was marriage? Work? Spiritual life? Was she fulfilled? She opened up more than she intended. She spoke of loving her husband but feeling stuck, of wanting more for her life, of dreaming bigger than their current reality. She didn't criticize Emeka directly, but the implication hung in the air like a thick fog. Pastor Victor listened intently, leaning forward, eyes never leaving hers. You're a woman of destiny, he said finally. I saw it the first time. But destiny requires sacrifice. Sometimes you have to step out of comfort zones. Sometimes the people around you, good as they are, cannot carry the vision God has given you. They will slow you down without meaning to. He quoted Ruth leaving Moab, Abraham leaving Ur, Even Jesus saying no one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom. Then he did something unexpected. He stood, walked around the desk, and laid hands on her head to pray again. This time longer, more intense. His palm was warm against her scalp. She felt a shiver run through her. Father, release her from every limitation. Let her rise to the level you have ordained. Connect her to her divine helpers. In Jesus' name. When he finished, he didn't remove his hand immediately. Instead, he looked down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, part pastoral concern, part something deeper. You will testify soon, he said softly. But stay close. Keep serving. And call me anytime you need to talk. Personally. He handed her a small card, not the general church line, but a direct mobile number written in pen. As she left the office, legs slightly unsteady, Ifeoma knew something had shifted. She told herself it was spiritual, an anointing, a father-daughter moment. But in the Uber ride home, clutching the card in her purse, she felt the first real spark, not of faith, but of desire. The kind that warms slowly, then burns. And though she went home to Emeka's gentle kiss and shared dinner, though she joined him in evening prayer as usual, a part of her was already elsewhere, replaying the pastor's voice, his touch, his words. That night, as she lay beside Emeka, the weight of her thoughts pressed heavily on her. She felt a tug of war within her heart, battling between loyalty to her husband and the undeniable connection she felt with Pastor Victor. Was it just admiration? Or was it something deeper? The next few days were a whirlwind. She found herself daydreaming during work, her mind drifting to the pastor's encouraging words and the warmth of his hand on her shoulder. Each time she saw him at church, her heart raced. She couldn't help but notice how he commanded the room, how his presence seemed to draw people in. Emeka noticed her distraction. You seem lost in thought lately. Everything okay? Yeah, just work stuff, she replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. The following week, she attended another service, and as usual, she was right up front. Pastor Victor's sermon that day was about stepping into your purpose, about breaking free from limitations. It felt like he was speaking directly to her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was on the brink of something significant. After the service, she found herself lingering, hoping for a chance to speak with him again. When the crowd began to thin out, she spotted him talking to a few members of the congregation. Taking a deep breath, she approached him. Pastor Victor? He turned, a smile lighting up his face. Sister Ifeoma, good to see you again. How have you been? Good. Just busy with work and church, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. You're a woman of destiny, right? Just think about it for a moment. The universe has a way of nudging us toward our true path, and Ifeoma is about to embark on a journey that's anything but ordinary. Stay close and feel free to call me anytime. Personally, the seeds of her long-buried ambition were planted, and now they're starting to sprout in ways she never expected. The affair begins. The first time Ifeoma crossed that line, it wasn't like a sudden fall. It felt more like a slow, inevitable slide into something thrilling and dangerous. It was a Thursday evening in March 2025, just 3 weeks after that counseling session that had stirred something deep within her. She texted the private number Pastor Victor had given her, a simple, "Good evening, sir. Trusting God for a breakthrough at work this week. Please remember me in prayer." His reply came fast, like he'd been waiting for it. Of course, daughter. Come to the office tomorrow after service. We'll pray together. She told Emeka she was heading to a special workers' prayer meeting that would run late. He kissed her goodbye, completely trusting, reminding her to text when she was on her way home. Little did he know, the prayer meeting was really just the two of them in his office. The door was closed, and the blinds were drawn halfway, letting the setting sun cast these golden stripes across the carpet. Soft worship music played from hidden speakers, something slow and intimate by Duncan Oiken. Pastor Victor sat beside her on the leather sofa instead of behind his desk, close enough that she could catch a whiff of his expensive, woody cologne. It was intoxicating. They started with long, intense prayers. His hand rested on her head, then her shoulder, and finally the small of her back. His voice rose and fell, declaring open heavens, divine favor, and release from every limitation. When the prayer ended, silence settled in, thick and charged, like the air before a storm. He looked at her differently now, not as a pastor looking at a worker, but as a man looking at a woman. "You're carrying something heavy," he said quietly. "I can feel it. Talk to me." And she did. She opened up about the restlessness that never left her, the feeling that marriage had clipped her wings, the fear that her life would peak at a two-bedroom flat and a Corolla. She didn't blame Emeka outright. She was careful, but her words painted a picture of quiet desperation. Pastor Victor listened without interrupting. When she finished, tears wetting her cheeks, he reached out and wiped one away with his thumb. "You deserve more," he said, his voice low and soothing. "God didn't create you to just manage. He created you to flourish. Sometimes, to get to the palace, you have to leave the village behind." His hand lingered on her face, and she didn't pull away. The kiss happened slowly. First a lean in, then a pause where their eyes locked, and finally his lips on hers. Soft at first, testing. When she didn't resist, it deepened. His hand moved to her neck, pulling her closer. She felt the heat of him, the strength in his arms, the expensive fabric of his shirt under her fingers. They didn't go all the way that evening. He stopped them, breathing heavily, resting his forehead against hers. "This is dangerous," he whispered. "But some fires are holy." He arranged a driver to take her home so Emeka wouldn't see an unfamiliar car. In the back seat, Ifeoma stared out the tinted window, heart pounding, lips still tingling. Guilt flickered, but it was drowned out by something stronger: exhilaration. For the first time in years, she felt alive. The affair ignited quickly after that. They met in carefully chosen spots: upscale hotels in Acadia and Victoria Island, places with private entrances and staff trained to look the other way. Pastor Victor would book the room under a company name, arrive first, and text her the floor and number when it was safe. She told Emeka variations of the same lies: women's fellowship retreat in Abuja, church conference in Port Harcourt, emergency prayer vigil for a sick department head. The lies came easier than she expected. In those hotel rooms, Pastor Victor was different from the man on the pulpit. Tender, attentive, lavish. He ordered room service: grilled lobster, champagne, chocolate-dipped strawberries. He ran baths with rose petals and expensive oils. He listened to her dreams and spoke them back to her as prophecy. "You will own businesses. You will travel the world. You will sit with kings." And he gave her things Emeka never could: an envelope with 200,000 naira for your hair and upkeep, a gold necklace from a jeweler in Dubai, a new iPhone 15 Pro Max in midnight blue, designer bags, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, delivered discreetly to her at church. Each gift felt like proof: this is the life you were meant for. The physical side consumed her. Pastor Victor was experienced, confident, unhurried. He knew how to make her feel desired in ways Emeka, sweet, respectful Emeka, never had. In those stolen hours, she forgot the flat in Bagada, the market runs, the careful budgeting. She was no longer a banker's wife struggling in Lagos. She was the chosen one of a powerful man, living in the overflow he preached about every Sunday. She knew about the rumors, the other women. She had seen the way certain sisters lingered after service, the knowing smiles some exchanged. She overheard whispers in the ladies' restroom: a banker in Abuja, a widow who funded church projects, a young convert who now drove a Benz. But she pushed it aside. "He's a man of God," she told herself. "Anointed men attract many. But I'm different." He said I'm special. He fed that belief constantly. Late-night texts: "Thinking about you during prayer. You carry a grace that calms me." God showed me a vision of us ministering together one day. She began to dream of a future where he would leave his wife, quietly, discreetly, and make her the new First Lady of Victory Tabernacle. She imagined herself on stage beside him, wearing custom gowns, traveling for crusades, hosting women's conferences in five-star hotels. The congregation would call her Mummy, and her mother would finally stop asking when she would arrive. The deception at home grew layers. She changed her phone password, cleared chat history religiously, took showers immediately after coming home to wash away any trace of cologne or hotel soap. When Emeka asked why she seemed distant, she blamed work stress or spiritual warfare. When he suggested they start trying for a baby, she said she wanted to wait until things were more stable financially. He believed her, or maybe he chose to believe her. He still prayed for her every morning, still brought food home when he finished work early, still held her at night with the same gentle love. But Ifeoma's heart was elsewhere. By mid-2025, The affair had become her real life. The flat in Bogota was just a place to sleep and maintain appearances. Church was the stage where she played devoted worker by day and slipped into the pastor's arms by night. She told herself it was temporary, that God understood, that great women in the Bible, Esther, Ruth, had to make hard choices to reach their destiny. But late at night, when Emeka's breathing was steady beside her and guilt tried to creep in, she would push it down with the same justification. I didn't leave a good marriage for nothing. I left for something better. And Pastor Victor, with his wealth, his power, his promises, was that something better? The fire had caught, and Ifeoma, blinded by the flames, walked deeper into it, convinced the burns would be worth the warmth. As the days turned into weeks, Ifeoma found herself lost in a whirlwind of passion and desire. Each encounter with Pastor Victor was like a breath of fresh air, invigorating her spirit and making her feel alive in ways she hadn't felt in years. She began to wear clothes that made her feel beautiful, confident, and desired. The compliments from Pastor Victor fueled her self-esteem, making her believe that she was worthy of the life she dreamed of. But with each stolen moment, the weight of her secret grew heavier. She often found herself staring at her reflection, wondering how she had gotten to this point. The guilt gnawed at her, but the thrill of the affair was intoxicating. It was a dangerous game she was playing, and deep down, she knew it. Yet, the allure of Pastor Victor's world was too strong to resist. Ifeoma started to notice the subtle changes in her demeanor. She became more outgoing, more vibrant. Friends and family commented on how she seemed to glow, and she couldn't help but bask in their compliments. It was as if she was finally shedding the layers of her old life, stepping into a new version of herself. The excitement of her double life was addictive. However, the reality of her situation began to creep in. The more she fell for Pastor Victor, the more she felt the distance between her and Emeka growing. He was still the loving husband, the supportive partner, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was living a lie. The thought of hurting him weighed heavily on her heart, but the fear of losing the life she had started to build with Pastor Victor was even more daunting. Rumors reached Emeka slowly, like smoke creeping under a door before the fire is even seen. It was that kind of creeping dread that makes your stomach churn, you know? It all started small. One afternoon during break, his colleague Brother Kunnel, who also went to the same Surrelir church, pulled him aside with a serious look on his face. "Brothers, how far with your wife? I don't want to meddle, but I hear some things," he said, glancing around as if someone might overhear. Emeka laughed it off, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. "What kind of talk is that? Ife is a good woman. She's just really into her new church." But deep down, a little seed of doubt was planted, and it started to sprout. Then came the anonymous text from a hidden number. "Ask your wife what she's doing with her pastor after service. Open your eyes." Emeka deleted it right away, furious at whoever was spreading such lies. But those words? They stuck with him like a bad song on repeat. He started noticing things. Ifeoma's phone was always face down or locked. She showered as soon as she got home, even when she said she came straight from work. Her perfume changed, something fancier than what he bought her last Christmas. New clothes appeared in the wardrobe, dresses with tags from boutiques in Lekki, shoes with red soles she claimed were gifts from church sisters. It was all adding up, and it didn't sit right with him. He asked her gently, "Ife, this new bag is nice. How much was it?" "Oh, it's not original. Sandra gave it to me. She said it wasn't her style anymore." He nodded, but doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening in October 2025. Emeka finished at the site early because of the downpour and decided to surprise Ifeoma with her favorite suya from the spot near Allen Avenue. He got home around 7 p.m., expecting her to be back from work. But the flat was empty. When he called, her phone rang out, and panic began to set in. He texted, "I'm home early. Brought suya. Where are you?" An hour later, her reply came, "Still at church. Women's fellowship ran late. Coming soon." But the next morning, a neighbor, Auntie Bose, who lived downstairs and sold recharge cards, stopped him as he was leaving for work. "Brother Emeka, good morning. I don't like gossip, but I saw your wife last night. Around 10 p.m., a big Jeep dropped her off at your gate. A black G-Wagon with tinted glass. She got out, and the car sped off. I thought you should know, because a husband should know." Emeka thanked her politely, but inside, something snapped. That evening, When Ifeoma came home, later than usual, claiming traffic, he was waiting in the dark living room, Bible closed on his lap. The atmosphere felt heavy, like a storm was brewing. She walked in, humming softly, flicking on the light. "Baby, you're awake? I thought you'd be sleeping." He looked at her, really looked. The new weave cascading down her back, the gold necklace glinting at her throat, and the faint smell of a man's cologne still lingering despite her shower. "Ifeoma," he said quietly, his heart racing. "Sit down. We need to talk." She froze, sensing the shift in his tone. At first, he didn't raise his voice. Emeka wasn't one to shout. He spoke calmly, but every word carried weight. "I've been hearing things, seeing things, anonymous messages, neighbors talking, you coming home late, new stuff I know I didn't buy, your phone always hidden, lies about where you are." He paused, watching her face for any flicker of truth. "I don't want to believe it, but I'm not a fool. Tell me the truth. What's going on between you and that pastor?" The name hung in the air like a storm cloud, thick and heavy. Ifeoma's first instinct was denial. "Emeka, what kind of accusation is this? Just because I serve God, people are spreading rumors? You're listening to gossip." But her voice shook, and she couldn't meet his eyes. He raised his voice then, just once, sharp and pained. "Ifeoma, don't insult me. I'm your husband. I know you. I know when you're lying." The Ife I married didn't hide her phone, didn't come home smelling like another man, didn't have G-Wagons dropping her off at midnight. Tears filled his eyes, tears of anger, betrayal, helplessness. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you're not sleeping with that man." Silence. Then she sat down heavily on the sofa, head bowed, as if the weight of her secrets was too much to bear. The confession came in pieces, like a puzzle that was hard to put together. It started as counseling, then it just happened. I didn't plan it. He understands me. He sees the greatness in me that this life doesn't allow. Emeka stared at her as if seeing a stranger. "This life? The life I've been building for us. The life where I wake up every day to provide, to pray for you, to love you even when money is tight? That life isn't enough." She began to cry. "It's not you, Emeka. You're a good man. But I feel trapped. I want more. I deserve more." The words hit him like a slap, echoing in the silence of their home. He stood up slowly, voice trembling. "So you left our marriage bed for a man who preaches on stage while sleeping with half the congregation? A man who will never marry you? You think he's going to leave his ministry, his wife, his reputation for you?" She said nothing, and the silence was deafening. Emeka walked to the bedroom, came back with her traveling bag, the same one she used for their honeymoon. "Pack your things." "Emeka," I said, "pack. If this marriage isn't enough for you, then go. Go to your more. But don't stay here and disgrace me further." His voice broke on the last word, the pain evident in every syllable. She pleaded then, desperation creeping into her voice. "Let's pray about it. Let's see a counselor." "I'll stop." But he shook his head, his heart heavy with disappointment. "No, you made your choice. Now live with it." The finality of his words hung in the air, a bitter reminder of what had been lost. Emeka turned away, feeling the weight of betrayal settle in his chest. He could almost hear the echoes of their laughter, their dreams, now overshadowed by this dark reality. As Ife packed her things, the silence between them felt like a chasm, wide and unbridgeable. Every zipper of her bag sounded like a final goodbye, a door closing on their shared life. Emeka's heart ached, not just for what he was losing, but for the woman he thought he knew. In that moment, he realized that love sometimes isn't enough. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's shattered, it's hard to rebuild. He felt a mix of anger and sorrow, a cocktail of emotions that left him feeling hollow. As Ifeoma stepped out of the door, a part of him wanted to reach out, to hold her back, to remind her of all the good times. But another part of him knew that some things, once broken, can't be fixed. He stood there, watching her go, the darkness of the evening wrapping around him like a shroud. The world outside continued, oblivious to his pain, and in that moment, Emeka felt utterly alone. That night, the rain was pouring down like it had something to prove, and Ifeoma was packing 2 bags. You know, it was one of those moments where you just feel the weight of everything crashing down around you. Emeka didn't lift a finger to help. He just sat there in the parlor, his head buried in his hands, completely lost in silence. It was like he was in a world of his own, and she was about to step out of it. At 11 p.m., an Uber pulled up outside. Not the fancy G-Wagon this time, but a simple car that felt like a symbol of her new beginning. Standing at the door with her bags, tears streamed down her face, and it felt like the rain was crying with her. "Emeka, I'm so sorry. One day you'll understand," she said, her voice breaking, filled with all the emotions she had been holding back. He looked up at her, eyes red and puffy, his voice flat as a board. "Go, and may God forgive you, because right now I can't." With that, she stepped out into the rain, feeling the cold drops mix with her tears. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed in the empty flat, and she knew there was no turning back. Emeka knelt in the parlor, weeping, deep, gut-wrenching sobs that only God could hear. It was heartbreaking to see him like that, but she couldn't stay. Outside, Ifeoma sat in the Uber, watching the streetlights blur through the rain-streaked windows. She was free now, free to live the life she always dreamed of, free to be with the man who could give her everything. But as the car sped toward Ikoyi, toward the pastor's waiting mansion, a cold fear settled in her stomach. It was a feeling she couldn't shake off, no matter how hard she tried to push it down. There was no turning back now. She had made her choice, and deep down, she believed it was the right one, even as the rain fell harder, as if the heavens were weeping for her. Shadows of Ambition. Chapter 13. Years of Illusion and Bitter Awakening. Fast forward to November 2025, and Ifeoma moved into the Banana Island apartment, just weeks after leaving Emeka. It was a 3-bedroom serviced flat on the 15th floor of a sleek high-rise, boasting marble floors and those stunning floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. Pastor Victor handed her the key card himself in the back seat of his armored G-Wagon, saying, "This is your new season. No more managing. Enjoy." For the first year, it felt like a dream she never wanted to wake from. It was all so surreal, you know? She quit her bank job to focus on ministry, she told anyone who asked, and became Pastor Victor's unofficial personal assistant. Her days were filled with shopping in Lekki boutiques, attending high-profile church events, and traveling with him on ministry trips to Abuja, Port Harcourt, even London and Atlanta for conferences. Can you imagine? She sat in first-class seats, stayed in Ocean View suites, and dined at restaurants where one plate cost more than her old monthly transport budget. It was a lifestyle that felt like a fairy tale. He showered her with gifts, a diamond tennis bracelet for her 30th birthday, a Rolex for Valentine's, and monthly allowances of 500,000 naira wired directly to her account with the memo blessing. At church, she was elevated. No more ushering in the general auditorium. She was now part of the protocol team that escorted the pastor, sat in the reserved front rows, and attended exclusive partners' dinners. Other women looked at her with envy or suspicion, but she carried herself with newfound confidence, head held high, outfits always on point. Sister Bose, once her friend, stopped speaking to her after realizing the truth. Sister Grace, the choir mistress, shot her cold glances during rehearsals. But Ifeoma didn't care. She had arrived. Pastor Victor was careful in public, never touching her during services, always addressing her as Sister Ifeoma from the pulpit. But in private, he was possessive, passionate, promising her the moon. One day, he would whisper in the dark of hotel rooms, "When the time is right, I'll make you my wife. The ministry will understand. God has shown me." She wanted to believe him so badly that she silenced every doubt. She cut ties with her old life gradually. Emeka blocked her number after she tried calling once, tipsy on champagne after a Dubai trip, to say she was sorry. Her parents, devastated by the scandal that reached Onitsha through church gossip networks, reduced contact to stiff birthday messages and prayers that she return to God. Ada, her bank friend, sent one long voice note. Ifeoma, I love you, but I can't watch you destroy yourself. This man will never marry you. Come back to your senses. Ifeoma didn't reply. Years passed in a blur of luxury and secrecy. 2026 rolled around, and she turned 31 at a private yacht party off the Lagos coast, surrounded by the pastor's inner circle, politicians, businessmen, Nollywood stars. Fireworks spelled happy birthday IFY in the sky, and she felt like a queen, but was it all just a facade? In 2027, they spent Christmas in Cape Town, just the two of them in a villa with a private pool. He gifted her a plot of land in Lekki Phase 1, titled in her name. "For our future," he said, and her heart soared. 2028 saw the church expanding, new branches in Ghana and the UK. Ifeoma traveled with him for the dedications, photographed, carefully cropped, in church magazines as part of the ministry team. 2029 brought rumors of his other women still circulating, but she learned to ignore them. When a young protocol sister got pregnant and was quietly sent abroad, Ifeoma told herself it was different this time. She was the main one. The one he called at 2 a.m. when he couldn't sleep. The one he prayed with before major crusades. Then came 2030, and she turned 35. The celebrations were quieter. Pastor Victor was busier, more stressed. Church finances under scrutiny, rivals spreading rumors online. He spent less time with her, more time in closed-door meetings. She filled the emptiness with shopping, spa days, and scrolling Instagram, liking posts of women her age with husbands and children. By 2031, cracks began to show. He missed her birthday entirely, stuck in Abuja for a political meeting. The allowance dropped to 300,000. When she complained, he snapped. "Do you know how many people depend on me? Be patient." She started hearing whispers from newer workers. A beautiful worship leader from Calabar now traveling with him. A widow from the Partners Forum scene leaving his hotel suite in Dubai. She confronted him once, tears streaming down her face. "Am I not enough? After everything I gave up for you?" He held her close, his voice soft again. "You are enough. But ministry is sacrifice. Trust the process." She swallowed the hurt. Waited. Then came 2032. It was a Sunday in April. Ifeoma was in her apartment, getting ready for service, when her phone buzzed with a WhatsApp broadcast from a church group. A photo of Pastor Victor and Sister Ezin, the lead choir mistress, standing together at the altar, her belly visibly rounded under a flowing white gown. The caption read, "Our daddy and mummy in the Lord dedicating their miracle baby today. God is faithful." Her world stopped. Ezin, quiet, devoted Ezin who had led worship for years, always in the background, never flashy. Ezin who had been pregnant for months, apparently, and no one told Ifeoma. She called him immediately. No answer. Panic set in as she drove to the church herself, heart pounding, arriving just as the dedication ended. The auditorium erupted in applause as Pastor Victor lifted the baby boy high, declaring, "This is the heritage of the Lord." Later, in his office, she confronted him. 7 years of her life poured out in angry tears. "You promised me. You said I was your future. How can you marry her? Because she got pregnant?" He sat behind his desk, calm, almost cold. "Ifeoma, sit down." And in that moment, she realized that everything she thought she knew was about to change forever. She remained standing, her heart racing, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. He sighed deeply, a sound filled with resignation. "You knew who I was from the beginning. I never lied to you. But marriage? That's a whole different ballgame. The ministry needs stability. A woman who left her husband for wealth. What guarantee do I have that you won't leave me for someone richer when the shine wears off?" Those words hit her like a punch to the gut, leaving her breathless. "You used me," she spat out, anger bubbling to the surface. "No, we used each other. You wanted an escape, and I craved companionship. It was good while it lasted, wasn't it?" He slid an envelope across the desk, thick and stuffed with cash, a bitter reminder of their past. "For your trouble, find a new place. Move on." Security stepped in, escorting her out as she screamed curses that echoed down the hallway. "You will regret this. God will judge you. Everything you built will crash." But the doors closed behind her with a finality that felt like a heavy weight settling on her chest. The fall was swift and brutal. The apartment lease ended in 2 months. She couldn't afford it on her own. The car he bought her, reclaimed as church property. The generous allowance stopped cold. Church members who once fawned over her now avoided her gaze in public, their whispers following her like shadows. Desperate and alone, she moved to a cramped one-room self-contained apartment in Mushin, the kind where you shared a kitchen and waited in line for the bathroom every morning. It was a far cry from the life she once knew. She took a job selling recharge cards and data at a busy junction, then later as a cleaner in a small hotel in Ikeja. At 38, Ifeoma's hands were rough from scrubbing toilets, her once designer wardrobe reduced to a few colorful Ankara wrappers and secondhand jeans. She felt the weight of her mother's disappointment every time she called. When her mother finally answered, her voice was heavy with judgment. You brought shame on us. Pray for forgiveness. Emeka had moved on, remarried to a quiet teacher from his village. They had 2 children now, and he changed his number, cutting off the last thread that tied them together. Nights in the cramped room were the hardest. Lying on a thin mattress, she listened to neighbors arguing through the thin walls, mosquitoes buzzing, and the generator noise rattling the window. Every sound was a reminder of her choices. The ambition that once burned bright now felt like poison coursing through her veins. I had a good man, she whispered to the dark, tears stinging her eyes. A home, peace, and I threw it away for illusions. Regret became her constant companion, sharp in the mornings, heavier at night. Frustration boiled into anger, only to fade into a numb exhaustion that settled deep in her bones. Eventually, she found a small neighborhood church, one with wooden benches and no air conditioning. It was humble, a far cry from the lavish gatherings she once attended. There, she began to volunteer again, not for status, but for healing. She counseled young women who reminded her of her younger self. Ambitious, restless, chasing shiny things that promised happiness but delivered heartache. Contentment is wealth, she would tell them, her voice steady and firm now. The grass isn't greener. It's just different grass, with different weeds. Some listened, their eyes wide with understanding. Others shrugged it off, too caught up in their dreams to hear the warning. But Ifeoma kept speaking, because her story, broken as it was, had become her cautionary tale. She wanted to save them from the same fate. In the quiet moments, when the Lagos sun set over the crowded streets and she walked home with aching feet, she prayed the same prayer every night. Lord, teach me to be thankful for what I have. And if you ever give me another chance at love, let me recognize it when it's simple. The illusions were gone, shattered like glass underfoot. The awakening was painful, slow, and ongoing. But for the first time in years, Ifeoma was beginning to find something real in the ruins. Humility, wisdom, and the faint, stubborn hope that redemption might still be possible, even for a woman who once chased shadows and lost everything in the pursuit. With every passing day, she learned to embrace her new reality, discovering strength in vulnerability and beauty in the mundane. She was no longer the woman who sought after fleeting desires. She was becoming someone new, someone who understood that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in the richness of experience and the depth of connection. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more awesome stories coming your way.